have you.
Same here, Sergey. It's great to be here.
I stopped doing long intros. I just find that you jump into it and it's just more engaging.
I 100% agree. I don't know if you noticed, we just recently started doing a podcast and we said, let's get rid of the intros. Let's get to the meat of the conversation.
You're stealing my first question. Exactly. You just launched it. I liked your post just honestly like 10 minutes ago. Tell me about the show. You've been putting out the content for a while, but now you just feel like it's the time to start your own podcast.
And to be honest with you, it actually triggered because we listen to podcasts, myself and Alex, our head of growth, a lot of sales, marketing podcasts, and a lot of them are great. But what we realized was there was not a lot of podcasts that specifically talked about a marketing campaign with data, meaning, well, just like the stuff we were talking before, like what was the CPL, what was the audience size, so we thought there's a gap in the market with that kind of stuff. So we said, you know what, let's just get B2B marketing, demand gen sales practitioners. They're running marketing and sales campaigns and share insights, specific data and hard numbers about the results they're getting. 10 to 15 minute chat. So that's what we haven't officially launched yet. I think it goes live Monday, but
right.
We have recorded 6 interviews and some great insights. It's incredible insights, specific data-backed insights. So yeah, that's what we are excited about. I don't know, like the inspiration, to be honest with you, came from, you follow Nathan Latka?
I Googled him. Yes, he does some amazing stuff.
Oh, incredible, right? So Nathan has this thing called where he interviews CEOs, where the CEOs have to come in and basically share insights, specific insights about like their MRR, their churn, their run rate, everything. And these are 10, 15 minute interviews. If you're not okay to share those, you're not welcome. Like they will not. So we took some inspiration from there. We are not that cutthroat yet, but we basically reach out to this market and say, hey, would you be comfortable sharing this specific campaign that you run? I don't need to know all your strategy, but this specific thing that you're proud of, what do you do? What were the results? What were the tactics, lessons learned? So that's what it is. It's called Show Me the Data.
That's a great one. I like it.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a gap. Like people talk about, let's get tactical, but the best tactics I've heard on a marketing podcast that will be like, okay, these are the 7 steps of the framework, go do it. Versus here's the cost per click, here's where it worked, and here's the organic versus paid, like we just talked about Facebook versus LinkedIn.
Exactly. So that's what we are hoping to do. We are hoping to collect this data, share it with the other markets, saying, hey, this person, like the first podcast host was someone who did an ABM campaign, and she specifically said, what are the tools she used, what was the budget, what was the conversion rate, and what was even the gift they sent. So I think this would be it fills a gap. That's what I think. We'll see how the audience receives it, and it'll be helpful for to be honest with you, even our customers too. So a lot of customers sometimes come to us and say, hey, we want to use intent data for ABM or something specific. Do you have any examples? And we can literally say, this is, we did an interview with this person. They didn't use Leadsift, but this is what they did. And these were the results. You can benchmark and things like that. So super excited.
I love that because, it's interesting because also, well, your product is called Leadsift and you sell the intent-based data and we'll talk about it. I'll let you talk about it in more detail, but then you didn't really come up to the idea of, let's start a podcast that absolutely has to be around intent-based data. It was just more about, there's a gap in the market. And by the way, it might potentially help us to have brand awareness for Leadsift.
Absolutely, yes. Like we did not want, it has got nothing to do with intent. It has got everything to do with a specific marketing strategy or a campaign that someone did and talking about that. If there is intent, whether it's Leadsift or something, great. That is not one of the questions. And the goal is to set this as benchmarks for the industry, brand awareness, obviously, but also helping our existing customers share this insight with them. So,
that's a great one. This is really cool because you're an engineer, right? You've been doing a lot of coding, and I've heard some amazing feedback on like how in depth you go. But then now you run the company for a couple of years. Where's this marketing mindset that you have comes from? Because you are clearly doing a lot of inbound content marketing, which is like a longer way to attract potential customers. Where's this understanding of like, oh, this marketing is about, like, it should be this, like it should be inbound marketing, I should be actually focusing on brand, comes from? Because you're coming from this engineering background.
Yeah. So my background is in computer science, and more specifically around data mining. But as a CEO, I don't get to write a lot of code. So I basically focus on two things. One is I work with my colleague Alex on the sales side of things. And then we did not have a dedicated marketing person in-house. So we work with an agency, but I had to take the lead on guiding the agency to basically tell them what to do. So that's why I sort of had to put that hat on and think about it. But one thing I think that helps is coming from a data science, data mining background, we are always looking for patterns in data. So one of the things that I do is when we're thinking of marketing, especially inbound marketing or interesting tactics that can scale customer acquisition, I always try to see what's something good that's working from some other expert that I hear. Like, for example, the last podcast that you did with the VP of marketing at InVision, she had some great insights. So I'm like, okay, so those are some great things. If I see that pattern repeat, then I try to apply it to our own marketing process. So I'm sort of using a little bit of data science background, in the sense I'm looking for patterns, what other great B2B marketers are doing, what's working, what's really working outside of the BS or the fluff, and then trying to replicate that in our solution. So that's where it's coming from, man.
Right, on a higher level, because like I know, like I would do the same thing. I would write posts. Let's say I'm posting on LinkedIn, and I would go back 1-2 weeks ago. I'd see what performed well, and then I would just expand on that topic, because there's actually people are interested in that. Versus if I come up with a new topic, sometimes you don't know are they actually really interested in this, or maybe they are not quite.
No, so that's the other thing that we realized with regards to the content that we are putting out. Couple things we have realized. So when we sort of pivoted into this intent data space for B2B, we were all outbound, 100% outbound. There was no brand, no one knew about Leadsift, and we had to go outbound, right? We were publishing some blogs, but again, it was predominantly outbound. We were getting data from Leadsift and then using outreach.io to send out emails. That's what we did. But then we realized the customer acquisition, or the demand, or the opportunity generation from outbound was dipping. The response rate was dipping. It was still above industry average, but it was still dipping because outbound was being saturated. And then what we realized was,
and when was what year was that?
This is 2016, mid 2016. So we saw great success between early 2016 to late 2017, early 2018, with regards just outbound, zero inbound. But then mid 2018, we realized we cannot, predictably scale the revenue without mixing in some outbound, some brand. Even outbound works better if the person you're reaching out to knows of your brand. That's the truth.
Absolutely.
So that's when we started looking into inbound. And we looked at different sources. We started creating content like blogs, webinars, organic LinkedIn and stuff like that. And we basically saw, a lot of our audiences is basically B2B marketers and demand generation people at B2B companies, and they all live on LinkedIn. So we know our audience is on LinkedIn. So we started creating content on LinkedIn, organic content, doing some paid promotion and stuff like that, complementing our outbound. And that seems to be working. There's more and more people that come to us. We basically ask them, if we don't know the channel, we basically ask them, it's like, how'd you find out about Leadsift? They're like, oh, I saw a post, or my friend shared something, or I heard you on a podcast, or something like that. So we are seeing, again, these are a little bit anecdotal, but we are seeing the trend happening. And I think right now, so I'll give you, speaking of numbers, showing the data, in 2017, when we hired our first salesperson, Alex, 88% of our leads or meetings booked were outbound. 88%. The rest, 20%, 12% were through networks. So I would reach out to an investor who would make an intro. Right now, we just literally did our Q3 planning. Right now, 77% of the leads are inbound.
And is this coming from, so inbound, that would not be just LinkedIn, right? That would be, that could be a YouTube, that could be somebody posting on their own show, like the podcast interview, let's say you did, right?
Absolutely. All of that. So it would be organic SEO, someone searching for intent data or behavioral looking up. It'd be podcast. It'd be LinkedIn. It would be G2 crowd. We get some leads from G2 crowd, YouTube, Facebook. We are dabbling into, we have a new social media person. He's dabbling into TikTok. I don't know how that will go, but yeah, but it's basically that it's inbound marketing. Yeah.
So do you, I mean, to me, it makes a lot of sense. I've honestly heard so many similar comments. I actually experienced the same thing myself when I started putting out content without necessarily a sales intent. I just had some thoughts about marketing. I'm like, hey, let me post it. And people are coming back and pretty much the same thing. There's like all these inquiries, which is crazy. Yeah. But do you focus on, like, what are some of the main channels that you look at? Obviously, you do LinkedIn. I've seen you are posting from the company page as well, which I've heard is not very effective at the moment because it LinkedIn algorithm actually deprioritizes the company page versus the individual posts. That's what I see right now. It seems like.
So I'll add two things. Yes, our data says personal posts get way more engagement than company pages. That's what we have seen. I am not knowledgeable enough to be making that comment saying that if I do not know if LinkedIn does it or not. I kind of find a little bit of like a lot of people are making guesses about how LinkedIn's algorithm works. It's similar to how Google PageRank worked. I remember back in the day in 2007, 2006, everyone was saying, oh, Google uses this for PageRank. Some of this was true. The rest of it was just garbage, like speculation. I think a lot of that is also happening with LinkedIn, but yes. In terms of personal posts, personally for us at Leadsift works better than company posts. The other sources are blogs. We do webinars, and in webinars we try to bring interesting guests who are experts in something specific, and they share their insights about a very specific topic that a lot of our customers ask for. So that's another sort of lead gen source or inbound traffic. For us, Facebook works, but Facebook, those are different channels.
And Facebook on the paid front, right?
That's right. Paid. Organic, not so much, but paid, yes. But even in paid, though, what we have noticed is Facebook paid works better for ebooks, case study type content rather than booking a demo or that kind of lower funnel. It's more top of the funnel. That's where we have seen good cost per acquisition from there.
Yeah, it's much better than direct response. It works pretty well as direct response for B2C, but like when you're doing B2B, it just doesn't, it's not effective. You end up generating the garbage leads effectively.
Yeah.
And you are, I would assume you are using your product to get the personal emails and create custom audiences.
That's correct. So for Facebook and LinkedIn, So for Facebook and LinkedIn, we use, one is custom audience, the other they call tailored audience, but same thing. We try to find the companies that are showing interest. We try to find relevant people. We try to find as many of other identifiers on them to do a matching. So we get a better match rate than just corporate email on Facebook. Yeah, so we definitely use that.
Interesting. Yeah, that's I found it to be very effective as we just spoke before we started rolling.
Yeah.
Are you doing anything on YouTube?
So yes, so that's another thing. So initially all the webinars and the video content that we produce, we hosted on Wistia. We migrated to YouTube. So we host all the webinars that we do, though after the webinars are done, we upload on YouTube. And that's what we are doing. But we are not driving a lot of SEO through YouTube yet. We have thought, so there are a couple of things we want to do. The podcast series that we're doing, we plan to upload all the videos on YouTube. And we want to do SEO through that. The other thing that we sort of started looking at it literally a month ago, we haven't rolled it out yet, is pre-roll ads on YouTube.
Yes.
by targeting. I have no idea how it works. Again, this is one of the things that I think one big B2B company was doing, and they shared it online, and there are a lot of people discussing about it. So we thought maybe there's a pattern there. We try it out. But we haven't explored YouTube as much as a lot of other people are, and we probably should.
Yeah, I've heard that pre-roll ads are really inexpensive. I haven't done a lot of those, but you definitely need, I think, like the big part of it is having the right creative, like creative specifically with like a punchline that comes in the first 3 seconds. And when you, and the ad type should be like the one that you could skip in 5 seconds, because there's another one which I think they call bumper ad, where it's like unskippable 3 seconds. And people get so mad. It doesn't actually, they don't even care what you're saying at that point.
Yeah, it's more negative, right? The impact will be more negative. Yeah. So we haven't dabbled into it, but we'll see.
It's interesting. No, I think it's what I've seen with YouTube, with a lot of companies is they would post, let's say they post a podcast and they would get 20 views, 30 views, but that's actually doesn't even matter in a way, because the main reason you would do that is to rank on Google over time.
That's right.
And then when it's more of a support role, when a prospect or a potential buyer is Googling you, and then they find that video and then they go on it, and then they just like this micro validation happens, and then they go back to the website, and it's very subtle, and you actually can't almost catch it in the data, but it works.
Yeah. So that's another thing. So attribution in those cases are almost impossible, right? You cannot provide attribution, but yes, absolutely it works. I just realized one thing. One of the things that I think YouTube allows you to do is retargeting, meaning you can say, only show this ad to someone on YouTube if they have searched for these specific keywords on Google. So it makes it super relevant that way. So if a demand gen marketer search for intent data or account-based marketing or one of our competitors, and then goes to watch the latest movie trailer, I guess, or sports highlight, them seeing an ad about us, like a good catchy ad, might work. So.
Yes, exactly. So that's one way. The other way is when you could advertise to the audiences for other channels that are similar, let's say your competitors, provided they allow it, and most of them do. There's a way to opt to turn it off. Let's say if you're Salesforce, you don't want to for others to advertise to your audience. It's like almost in a way like Facebook Pixel, but it's like shareable.
That's right.
And it's opt-in or opt-out. And a lot of channels I found that are opt-in. So for example, what I've seen and what I've tried is if you look at conferences, right? Let's say there's a relevant conference, you go on that channel, and those are generally not very popular. You would get 2, 3, maybe 10,000 subscribers at most, and you would get 500,000 views. But that's a long tail type of audience, and you could still get them in. Why wouldn't you just drop them in and see what happens?
Absolutely, yes. Yeah.
So tell me about micro content. I know you commented on one of my posts, and I also I'm a big believer in that. I think TikTok, although might not be necessarily direct connection to B2B, but there's something in it.
Yeah. So it was not my decision to be exploring TikTok. I was vetoed by a couple of my teammates, but it's okay. We'll try. So I didn't even know what micro content is, to be honest with you. I call them short clips, but then I realized there's a technical term. Actually, from your video, I realized it. And then when you said Joe Rogan, I'm like, damn, a lot of the times I don't listen to the whole Joe Rogan video. I listen to the short parts of it. So what we do now is any webinar or any kind of video content we do, we try to find 3 to 5 key snippets from there, and chop it up and use tools like Subtitle or something to put closed captioning, and then just post them repeatedly on social, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook. We even share some of them with our prospects or existing customers. So that seems to give a lot more leverage to the content that you just publish. So, let's say you do a webinar, we get about 100 signups. 30% of them attend live, and we share it with them. But post that, we can take out some good snippets of that and then just promote it online to an audience that did not know of the webinar or didn't attend the webinar or didn't subscribe to it. Now they're like, there's a very good piece of information. So I'm a big believer in micro content now, especially video. micro
Yeah.
content.
Yeah, I think it's so effective. In the future, we're probably going to see so much more of it because, like, you look at the consumption of the 40-minute piece versus 2-3 minute piece, and it's higher. It's really, really is higher.
Way higher.
Yeah, it is really interesting. And Joe Rogan has this whole YouTube channel, Joe Rogan JRE clips.
Clips. Yeah, that's right. That makes so much sense. But the key there is you hope when you're having this video recording or discussion, there are those awesome nuggets of information that your guest drops, and you're like, this is it. Like sometimes while talking to last webinar, there was a discussion, and one of the guests, he described something. I'm like, this is the money clip. I am clipping this.
Yeah, it's so true. It's so true. There's it's also like I find when you work on that's micro content, the editorial work is so important. Like how do you pick the right ones, right? Like the picking the right ones. Because a lot of times I find the short form clip, it's like almost feels like it's just for the sake of making it short form clip. Like there's nothing in it.
It's an art. It is an art. It's like how do you stitch it together? Sometimes there's like you're trying to make a micro clip. Maybe the first bit is only 10 seconds, but then 10 minutes down the road, they say something that's related to the first clip. There's another 50 seconds. If you stitch them together, that becomes very powerful. So I think there is a little bit of that in there. It's figuring how to stitch them together.
It's so true. Like that, people who I was speaking to one of my friends who's a marketer. He said this line I thought was just genius. He said, I saw the research, and in the future, people who know how to make video, a short form video that skill will be more important than coding.
Wow. Okay, that is a bit of a stretch, but yeah, sure.
I mean, of course. I mean, it sounds like a marketer made it up, of course, because it's a good headline, right?
That's a good clickbaity tagline. Yeah, that'll get a lot of eyeballs.
Sure. I know. Forbes is really bad at this. Like, I mean, they're just terrible at this clickbaity headlines.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
What do you do with how do you produce your micro clips? Like you have, do you do it in house? You are outsourcing it?
Yeah. So what we are doing is we have a social media marketing person in house, and he's actually out of Toronto. And he tries to create 5 micro clips a week. And one of the things we do is for some of them, like if I feel strongly about a video that one of us recorded with a guest, I'll suggest that to him and say, hey, this is the timestamp. Can we make a clip? The rest, like he would use his judgment. And basically we use one of these online tools. We use Subtitles. There are a couple others. They're relatively inexpensive and get the job done. It does the translation, provides you the SRT files and everything.
Right. I'm doing it myself, like pretty manually right now. It's in the Final Cut Pro, but you have a little bit more control. But I think the tools like you just described, it could be easier, like more streamlined approach.
Yeah, absolutely.
When you are sending, let's say you want to share that clip with a prospect, where do you host the video? Would you link it to the YouTube or to some like with a website?
If it is already hosted, we haven't uploaded a lot of the micro clips on YouTube yet. We upload the MP4 files on the platform. But when I share with the prospect, I basically do one of two things. Either I would link to the MP4 file on Dropbox, make it shareable, or I would sometimes actually link directly to the LinkedIn post, because when some of the micro clips that I post, I would add some context to it in the post. So I'll share that.
That's good. Yeah, it's a good approach. Yeah, especially because they're generally not big when they're compressed.
That's right. Yeah. So the other thing, when I think of micro content, now that I think about it, so we have thought of micro content. Well, I am thinking of micro content in 2 ways. One is taking a long video and making shorter clips of it, as we talked about. The other version is on purpose making micro clips, meaning the whole discussion will be total of 5 minutes, and I might put that's a little bit longer form of micro content, but those also get a lot of engagement and value. And I'll tell you why. One of the things we did was when COVID hit, end of mid to end March, when things were really bad, we stopped all our outbound. So we try to reach out to, on average, about 100 people every week. to personalized outbound. So companies that have shown intent, people within them, we send
right.
personalized report. So we said, you know what, right now is not the right time. So let's stop. But we still need to create content and let the world know we are there and we can help. But so what we did was we reached out to people that are experts, like sales leaders, like John Barrows, couple CEOs, a VP of marketing, and basically said, hey, you know, in your role as a sales leader, what are you doing? What are you suggesting to your customers? As the VP of marketing, what are you doing? As a CEO, what are you doing? As
Genius.
So, and we basically did 5-minute clips, very specific, asking them 3 questions, and everyone had a different perspective, and basically posted them. And some of our prospects actually replied back saying, Tukan, my sales team was wondering how to send email during this time, and your John Barrows clip actually answered it. Like, one of the things we did with John was saying, hey, John, I'm going to show you an intent signal on a company that we know is still growing. Like, we could predict that they're growing, they're resilient. Can you tell me if you get this intent signal or this trigger, wherever, forget lead, wherever you got the signal, how do you reply? And he basically told on the spot how you would reply. That's a great piece of content. And I just shared it on LinkedIn, shared with our prospects, customers, saying, hey, this is what the leading sales leader is telling. Feel free to use it. So that's another form of micro content that we did, is on purpose, keep it super short and just go for it.
And you did it in a Q&A format, right? So you reached out, let's say you talked to John and you asked him a question, but you told him, look, it's going to be 5 minutes.
That's it. Oh yeah, absolutely. We said it's going to be 5 minutes. It's going to be a Q&A. I only ask for 15 minutes of their time. First 5 minutes, we just chat. And then we say, okay, we're going to record. These will be the questions. Like these are the kind of topics. There is no fixed question. Basically, the goal is, we are trying to help our audience. You are an expert in this. What are you doing? Just tell me.
Right, but you're not. You would, as an interviewer, you wouldn't be providing too much commentary. It would be just like John. Let's say he would be like talking.
Absolutely. Oh, I'll keep shut other than asking the questions and nodding my head.
I was thinking, you know, I've read this. This is phenomenal. I think this is such a phenomenal strategy. It's like I'm smarter than basically everybody else. It's like it's a basically like micro show in a way that is perfectly tailored to COVID. And it's like, it's such a great piece of content. Instead of just trying to think about some BS reason for people to read it, there's actual experts who are talking about it.
Yeah, no, we were very proud of it. And it actually helped us a lot. It gave us, it gave us more than this. So this is weird. More than it gave us the number of leads and all that, it gave us a purpose, meaning saying internally, we are like, you know what, we are taking a stance where we are not going to be publishing blogs, sending out cold emails. We are actually going to create content that is genuinely going to be valuable, because I am going to find value out of it. If I find value, chances are other people in a similar spot would find value. So let's just go ahead with that. So.
That's a pretty rare perspective, I find, over and over again. I think I actually posted about it on LinkedIn, and that post got a lot of engagement, where this gap between us as consumers and as marketers, where we would never click on that thing, but we are like so happy to let's send it over and hope that something happens. And
funny you mentioned that. Jason Lemkin, he published a post, like a LinkedIn post. He said, marketers, or founders, the webinar, the ebook, the case study, the podcast, whatever you're putting out, make sure that when you're creating this or putting it out, think about this would be the most useful piece of content that your audience reads for that week. And let's say if I put like the Show Me the Data podcast, if I put it out, it's not going to be relevant for an accountant or a sales development lead or an engineer. But what I do want to do is, if you're an account-based marketer or demand gen person, if you're thinking about running that or whatever, if you listen to this, you're like, this is probably one of the best pieces of content that I listen to or consume. So that's the mindset we should have. But it's tough. It's tough because we get carried away. We get carried away with the BS and
it's a discipline. It's a discipline.
It is.
And it's also interesting that, like, what I found the huge benefit of having a micro content is that you could actually promote the longer form piece of content by using that short video as an ad instead of a single image, because
That's
it's
correct.
so much more effective. You could use it on LinkedIn, use it on Facebook, and you could do retargeting if you want for people who watched it. And actually, it's
Yeah.
going to be pretty effective. And then you could retarget them with another another different clip. But it's smart versus, oh, let's put a single image of a stock footage from 2007 and run with
Yeah.
that.
I absolutely. So that's another thing. So one of the things we've experimented a little bit of some of these micro clips on Facebook as paid ads for as assets, but that's something that we're going to do more and more of it.
It's so what I've heard, and this is fantastic. What I've also heard, and I haven't executed, but I was planning on to try, is pretty much do the same micro Q&A like you described, but instead of actually joining the call and booking the call, you have a few questions that you'd like to get answers to, and then maybe you send them to John Barris and say, John, at your own time, record in whatever you want to record. Use your iPhone, record yourself for 5 minutes, answer these questions, and send the video over.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know how that will work though, because I think you as a speaker, at least that's true for me. I would speak better or with passion if I'm having a dialogue. I guess that would be gone if I'm just recording it. That will be one of my thoughts. But one tactic that I heard was someone told me is a lot of people are recording their Zoom calls, like the sales calls. And in the sales calls, it is, I think it's a gold mine for content, for topics to create, because your prospects are asking you, so how do you do this? How do I apply this? Like relevant questions. One of the tips they shared was when a customer asks you a question, you give an answer, record that bit, make a clip out of that. That is one of the best pieces of content. So for example, one common question they ask is, how are you different than this? Or do you comply with GDPR? And we always have great answers to that, and because we know what the answer is. But those are great pieces of content that you can take out and right and share it. That was an idea that someone told me. We haven't executed on it yet, but I'd be up for doing that.
It's so good because I've heard that idea from Chris Walker. He's the CEO of Refine Labs, and he's a LinkedIn beast. He's getting like a lot of likes on his posts, but he does this pretty much the same strategy as we're talking right now. But he said, like, how I get this videos is I set up this expensive camera because he bought it now, and I jump on the call with a person who asks me question on LinkedIn, let's say, because he does the marketing services, and somebody would ask him, hey Chris, how do I do Facebook? He's like, sure, let's jump on the call, 15 minutes, and it's free. And then he would record it and he would send it to his team and then repost it.
Imagine that. See, that's perfect, right? He's giving the free consultation. It's a lead for him potentially, but he's getting so much value post the video is created. So
it's brilliant. It is such a genius of strategy. Another thing I've heard, and I thought it was so good. So there's a guy, Josh Brown. He's a sales guy, and he does this show. He calls it "I Teach My Wife Sales." And it's really good. It's a micro show. It's like 3 to 4 minute clips on YouTube where he sits on the bench with his wife in his backyard and he records it on his iPhone. And he talks about like, how do you go over objections? How do you resolve that? And his wife starts by telling a story like, oh, my neighbors were so loud and it was 11 p.m. And Josh would be like, so what did you do? I just yelled at them. And what happened? Well, they didn't stop. And then Josh would be like, oh, here's what you do. And that element of entertainment was so good versus, it's like not like another boring thing.
Yeah. So that's the other thing. Like, how do you stay away from the boring part of it? That's tricky because a lot of people can create great content, but just because it's so long, it's the great piece of information might be buried 45 minutes into the discussion. So you need to create. That's why micro content becomes interesting, and keeping it not boring is also key. So.
Are you? I mean, you are super heavy into data, of course. Are you thinking, or have you thought about any entertainment type of concepts, or not yet? Or
what we are thinking of is, I do not know. I know for a fact that we are not going to do any kind of gimmicky, entertaining kind of like with funny hats or music or stuff like that. I don't think we'll do that. Yeah. But what we will do is one of our strengths is the data that we have that's unique to us. So one of the things we're going to do is we're going to focus more and more in releasing data, whether it's infographic or graphs and stuff like that, that is helpful to the audience and that's unique to us. That always performs. So one of the best pieces of content that we did, or I don't know, I mean, I shouldn't say it's content, but basically one of the things we did was and I think I shared it with you, and that's where we got connected on LinkedIn, was when COVID hit, we were always thinking of, how can I ask John Barrows to give me insights and other experts. At the same time, one of the things we did was we basically did two things. We actually, one of the signals we track for predicting intent is jobs. So we basically said, you know what, I will group by country which companies are currently hiring for people and just post that data out. There is no gating, nothing. We just shared that. We repurposed it recently, calling it We Have Good Intent campaign. And so that was pretty funny.
I like that.
But then one of the things we did was, one of the best piece of content we recently did was we actually looked at companies that were resilient even in the times of COVID. Meaning what we did was we actually looked at companies that were still hiring actively, that were still running marketing campaigns, meaning webinars, that were promoting or doing live events, that were still buying media. So we extracted that data and we ranked them and we shared that list of companies for the month of May. So there were 24,000 companies, no strings attached, name of the company, industry, and we just basically shared that list. There were over, I forget, 27,000 people that clicked on the link, came to the Google Sheet. We didn't convert. I do not know how many leads we converted or anything. We got at least three mentions, 2 podcast guests. We are working with a big publisher.
But
do a story.
But the number, I would assume you probably, obviously you didn't track it, you didn't gate it. However, if you look at the number of inbound requests, it probably has increased.
Absolutely, it definitely did.
It's one of those things where like attribution is never accurate, because like the person could click on the ad on Google, but they only clicked on it because you told them about how cool the product is, and you would look at the data. You're like, oh yeah, let's double down on Google versus that was a referral. So it's like it's never going to be perfect.
I know, but one of the things that one thing was clear, and this has happened over and over again. So anytime we publish any data that is any piece of content, like text content that is backed by data that's unique to us, is great. And one of the companies that kills it is Gong.
Oh my God, they're so good.
Right? Yeah. Analyzing 23,000 calls. This is what, and everyone eats it up because it's super unique, because no one else has that data. Might be Chorus or some other company. And the other thing is it's so helpful. So I think we want to go like, that's who we aspire to go, like that kind of content, but specifically from intent and buying predictions.
And I think that's probably one of the reasons your podcast is going to do super well, because you're sticking with stuff that people will always want, the data, like specifics.
That's it. Show me the data, because there's so much. There's very, very little information on, like this person, the first guest. She said how she got a 30% conversion on an ABM campaign. First of all, I have not found a lot of content or information about what's the average conversion rate on ABM. Everyone says ABM is B2B, ABM is great, that's awesome. But tell me, what's the conversion rate? How do you get it? Like how many people did you reach? What was the budget? Like that itself is super valuable. So we are very excited about it, to be honest with you. And I would love to give a shout out to Alex Field, who's our head of growth. It was his idea. He always comes up with cool ideas. A lot of them I shoot it down, but this one was incredible. And we got inspired by what Nathan Latka was doing, and we said, you know what, let's do this for marketers.
No, that's a good idea. That is such a strong idea. Like I think it's like, brilliant.
To be honest with you, what we have a dream is, like, eventually when we have, like, let's say 100 or 200 guests, so we would have like an air table where someone can go and say, hey, I want to see what's the benchmark for someone in a manufacturing industry in North America. What's the benchmark campaign? Like, what campaign did they run, this company? I want to see that. Like that kind of information we would hope for. So
yeah, that would be super smart. And you touched on IBM. I never understood what ABM means. Like ABM, like everybody's tossing the word. I bet most people don't know what it is. And then I looked at it. I looked at the software. It's basically running text-based ads on on certain keywords. I'm like, guys, like, come on, like, you think that's gonna work? And I'm like, okay, if that's true, then how IBM is different if I put up a LinkedIn ad by title and company?
yeah,
Right? No
yeah.
software. No software.
No, I know. So again, that's true not just with ABM, but that's true with a lot of other things where a great marketer, you have to credit a marketer, would come up with this strategy and make it sound like this incredible thing. So
yeah, yes, that's why they do road shows.
that's
Yeah,
right.
like Uberflip does. I mean, a lot. Oh, they have to, like, because it's like you don't need it. I mean, effectively.
But I don't think those road shows are happening anymore. That's gone.
That's I mean, it's fascinating. It really is fascinating how they're gonna turn this around. I want to touch on Leadsift because we kind of talked a little bit about it. We didn't dive into the detail. Tell us a little bit about what you do, because I think it's super cool, especially for anybody who's listening from B2B.
Sure. I mean, so Leadsift, the tagline is we are an intent data provider for other B2B companies, helping them identify the accounts and the contacts to go after based on signals of buying behavior. That's what we do. So that's the big like 30,000 foot view. But if you unpack that, and this is something that we want to talk a lot more, we want to create content on it, is what is intent? Because there is a lot of misconception about what intent is. Intent is not new. It's not just 5 years ago or 10 years ago, like Bombora didn't come up with it or Leadsift didn't come up with it. Intent has been there forever. Intent in its basic form means it's the likelihood of, in B2B, the likelihood of a company needing your product or solution at any given time. That's intent. That's buying intent, right? Now, obviously, if it is related to someone buying your product or solution, that is the most important thing. Every sales and marketing person knows when someone has a likelihood for your solution. Now, there comes the challenge. There is, at least from a third party, and intent has two different sides. One is first party, meaning they come to your website or they talk to you. They say, hey, I'm interested in your services. That's first party intent. That's great. But less than 1% of your total addressable market is coming to your website and filling out a form or requesting a demo. The rest are doing something outside.
Like 98% not in a buyer's mode, right?
That's right. So out of the 98%, not all of them are looking to buy a solution. They just don't have the need or anything. But give the different stats, anywhere between 10 to 30% of them are starting to think. Some of them might be lower in the funnel. Intent goal is identifying who that 10 to 20 or 30% are that are in buying mode and surfacing that information to you. Now that sounds great. Now let's take a step further. The reality is, and I'm gonna probably shoot myself in the foot by saying this, is there is no single source of intent from a third party source that can tell you this company is guaranteed gonna buy from you. I can guarantee you. There isn't. Anyone saying that is lying. And at Leadsift, we legit look at it and tell our customers, look, there is no outside signal of intent that can guarantee say that. If I could, I'd be a multi-billionaire.
That's a probability.
Right? It's a probability. And whenever you're thinking of probability, there's obviously chances of a mistake. So what we do is, and every intent data provider, I'll talk about ourselves, is we look at different proxies that give us an indication that there might be something going on that indicate that buying mode, that timing. And for us, that could be one of multiple different things. It could be, and I'll take one step back, is we look at publicly available web information.
Right.
Our mission at Leadsift has always been to mine anything that is public, similar to what Google does, but for B2B, this space.
No privacy concerns, effectively.
No privacy concerns. So basically, we tell our customers that if you had 1 million lead researchers, they could go over every job posting, every technology change, every tweet, every LinkedIn, everything, every press release, and pick up this data. That's not possible. We automate the process. So for us, when we are trying to make this prediction, the probability of someone being in the buying journey, we basically look at, it could basically indicate if someone is talking to a competitor of yours. that could be a signal, or a complementary company or a partner. Why are they talking to them on a forum? Why are they asking questions about them? Why did they share this webinar link that they did? Maybe they are, maybe they are not. But it starts becoming really interesting is if you see, let's say you sell a marketing consulting services, if you see someone talk about one of another consulting company 3 weeks ago, then 2 weeks later, you see them posting a job about hiring a director of marketing. Then you figure out that 6 months ago, they started using Marketo because you're specialized in Marketo. Then you also see one of their director of sales have been asking questions about lead generation on a public forum. If you look at all of these 4 signals, that give you an indication that they're definitely a good fit, and they might be in the buying journey at this moment. Will they buy from you? I don't know. But with all this data, I can make a pretty educated guess that they would be a good company for you to prospect.
Right. It's like the consultants, like the consultants would look at, oh, these people are hiring, let me reach out to them versus reach out to everybody else, because it's going to be like, like a bunch of people who don't really care.
That's correct. So if you layer on hiring, technographics, engagement, research, industry event, SEC filing, all of this, even podcast mentions. So we would look at people talking about podcasts, and if there's in the metadata, they said they're investing in ABM, I know there's something going on. So again, you can stitch to all of this data together and get a good picture of this intent of this company to buy your solution. So that's really what we do. I know it's a long-winded answer, but I wanted to clarify this.
It's very cool. And you have content to actually show how it works. I've seen numerous videos that like, here's the spreadsheet, Absolutely. Here's what it is, here's how you can use it, which is like great. I mean, that's the best validation.
So the other thing is like, this is crazy, like because we think so deeply about intent, because we really want to focus on data. We are a data first company. We want to be best at predicting buying intent for B2B. Some of the intent signals are actually not even explicit. What I mean by that is, like this might be a provocative question or a comment.
Let's do it.
Let's say you are a marketing consultant. So a company that would be a fit for you would be if you see a B2B SaaS company that do not have any marketing person in their role, but they use Marketo and they've been around for 5 years. That, in my mind, is a good signal of intent, meaning they're growing their team, they're still functioning, they use Marketo, but they don't have a marketing person. I would consider that company to be a good buying intent fit. Did they do anything explicitly? No, they didn't. But the fact that they have certain characteristics that go deeper than just an ICP of 50 employees and plus and all that can give you some insight into who are the right people to go after. Same, if you're a content marketer, if you see a company that has a bunch of salespeople, but they don't publish more than one content every 3 months, that the absence of content is an intent. So I don't know.
So true.
So those are different ways you can look at intent.
You said hypothetical. Actually, know at least one company that matches what you just said. Your first example, like legit. Really? That's exactly. Yep. Exactly. They use Intercom, they use Salesforce, they use all the tools. They don't have marketing person because the engineer would be doing marketing.
There you go. So they can genuinely help some expert coming in few hours a week, giving them the guidance and running demand and all that.
So what does it mean from the filter perspective? Because you said we could set up an ICP, a typical ICP thing, or we could do it in a smarter way, like you just described, which would be a slightly different approach. Is it do you want to do both, or if you're looking at a company, let's say, like you described, that does not have a marketer but could be potential looking at a marketing, like, is that a more broader approach than a traditional ICP?
Yeah, so that would be a more narrower approach, to be honest with you. At Leadsift, few ways we filter the data is, first you come in and you basically say the way we look at it is which business category do you fall under. Let's go with your example. You're a marketing automation consultant or something like that, right? Marketing operations consultant. So that's the business category you fall under. Immediately, once you tell me that, there's two things our system will spit out to you. First, it'll tell you these are 20 or 50 other players that fall under the same business category. That's number one. The second thing that you would filter is, it would suggest to you is these are some keywords that people that use marketing operations consultants would use. So you would want to track that. Now that will bring in everyone, freelancers, consultants, other consultants talking about it. Then you would add your filtering. Then you would say, okay, I only care about companies that are B2B SaaS. Or I would only look at companies out of these that are B2B SaaS, 50 employees in North America, and in the last 90 days that have a new CMO or currently hiring for an SDR. So you can add that filter. You can go another step. You can add saying in the last 60 days, if any of them have that have also started using Intercom or Drift. So if you look at all of this, so those are some ways to do filtering. We currently do not support saying things like, give me a list of people that have shown interest towards your competitor or your keyword, but don't have a marketing person or anything or have not published content in the last 90 days. I would love to get there, but it's custom for every customer, like that qualification. So yeah.
Very cool. That's super powerful. That is super powerful. I love that. That's so, it reminds me of like Facebook, like mostly Facebook, like the power of Facebook, what you could do with audiences, what you could do with filtering. I mean, obviously different context, different tool, but it's just that power of like get into the right smaller segment of people. Cause I mean, there's a lot of them in ICP, like, oh, let's go after everybody like this 200,000 companies. And it's a shot in the foot, of course. Tukan, okay, let me ask you this. So in terms of like cool people in marketing who are doing like, who's doing really good content marketing work that you look up to? You mentioned Gong. Are there any other people who are like, you look as an inspiration, somebody that could be video, audio content, or podcasts?
Yeah. Few people that I'm blown away and I'm inspired by. One is Chris Walker from Refine Lab. It's incredible.
Amazing guy.
I look up Nathan Latka. He's not a marketer, but B2B. I met Nathan in San Francisco about 3 months ago, and I said, Nathan, your newsletter is the only newsletter that I read because the way he writes it, right? So incredible. He did a live. I don't know if you saw it. He did a live Shark Tank today.
I haven't. No.
Where he had a founder, and there were 3 buyers, and the founder shared his insights, like his stats, like MRR, growth, churn, and the bidders would bid and they would negotiate. It was incredible. I learned so much. So Nathan Latka, Chris Walker, Gong, Chorus is also catching up. They're putting out good content. Dave Gerhardt, who's at
GG. Yeah, GG is great.
Right?
I think he kind of flipped more to on copy now. He used to do more videos, but like him walking at Starbucks.
Yeah, more copy. Yeah, I know. So he does some great content. And there are quite a few other people that I follow. There's this guy. He used to work at Segment and Drift, Guillaume.
Oh, I know this G. I think they call him G. He's super cool.
Oh my God, his content is so actionable. It's great. So these are some of the people that I follow. And then there are certain CEOs or venture capitalists on Twitter. They're not so much on LinkedIn that put out amazing content. So Tom Tungus from Redpoint, he has some of the greatest. Jason Lemkin, how can I forget them? Like that's SaaS metrics content. So,
right.
So yeah.
That's pretty cool. I've seen a lot of your videos. You are so happy. You're a happy person. I could tell. Like you're in a very upbeat mode almost always. And
Go ahead. I'll let you finish.
I just gonna say like the job of CEO is so stressful. I mean, I've interviewed a lot of them before, and I was just curious, like, what do you do to keep yourself in the right mode psychologically and just like mentally?
Couple things. I wouldn't say I'm a happy person. It's a bit of a facade. I have to, but jokes aside, though, I'm a pretty positive person. That helps. Like I'm genuinely positive and optimistic. But the biggest thing that helps, Sergey, is we have been doing Leadsift for over 7 years now, so it's tough doing it. But the best thing is when you do something that you're passionate about, it doesn't feel like work. I still get super excited because I'm working on something that I'm deeply passionate about because of our background is in data mining, data science. Like we are passionate about extracting these nuggets of information, right? So that's one thing. The second thing is the team. I as a first-time founder, I made every mistake possible. from a culture perspective, it's horrible. I shudder when I think about it. But once you have the right team, the right people, it makes the job so much easier. So I focus a lot more energy on communication, the culture part of it. And once you have the right kind of people working with you, the job becomes easy. So those two combined, the passion for the problem you're trying to solve and the team is what's keeping me excited and motivated and seem happy in LinkedIn videos.
Of course. No, I always thought, to be honest, from my experiences, that it's about the people you're working with.
It's absolutely true.
Makes such a big difference. What do you say? And I mean, because of course it's not a personal development show, but I'm still curious to hear your answer. Like a lot of people say, oh, you should follow your passion, focus on your interests. And I totally agree with that, like you just said. But sometimes your passion could be not very monetizable, right? Something that maybe you can't do, like being a basketball player or a hockey player, something like that. What do you say to, what's your perspective on that? Just how would you think about,
what would be your perspective? Like the question is, like how do you chase or follow your passion if it's not very monetizable?
Right. Or you find a different one. Like, how do you approach that? Because some people would have a passion that maybe it's going to be really tough to sell, right? Or tough to support yourself in a way.
Yeah. But see, the thing, I do not think every passion that you have, you need to monetize. That's the first thing. I don't think every passion you don't need to build a company around it. It can be just passion following you. You don't need to start a company. But if you are starting a company, a business, doesn't matter tech or non-tech, you need to be passionate about the craft of what you're doing, whether it's making pizza or helping B2B marketers better engage their customers or doing better implementations of market or running paid ads. You need to be passionate about that. And the motivation shouldn't be money. That's so this is my personal thing. And maybe that's why I'm where I am. It cannot be money. If I see a lot of entrepreneurs that come to that, like friends, and I meet people and they're like, I'm 28, by 30, I just want to get $1 million and I've made it. And I'm like, I do not think that's the right motivation. Doesn't matter what your passion is.
No.
So that would be my thing. I don't think all passion needs to be monetized from that perspective. And when you're passionate about something, the metric shouldn't be dollar. Obviously, there needs to be revenue but you cannot be thinking of, I need to be making this much, and you're not in it for the right reason.
I totally agree. That's what I was just curious, because I'm so interested how people think, and you just like echoed pretty much my thoughts. As I always thought, and I looked at so many people who are successful, the money never were number one. Never. It
cannot be. It is a side product. So I'll tell you my definition of success, and I do not know where I read it, or now it's internalized. I think it's mine. But what I fundamentally believe, for me, success is the people that believed in us, whether it's the early investors, angels, venture capitalists, the early team members, the employees that have joined the company, the other co-founders, is making them look smart, and when they look back on it, they're like, we did the right thing by backing this guy. Like, for me, that's success. And if obviously they would think that it's the right thing is if I have made them money and all those things by being with integrity and everything. But that's my motivation of success. That's what I'm chasing. So
that's a great one. No, totally.
Thank you.
That was a great chat. I have to say, I really enjoyed it. Tukan, where's everybody can find you online?
Cool. So LinkedIn is where I'm most active on. So you can look me up by Tukan Das.
I'll link it. I'll link it in the show notes.
Yeah, please do. I'm on Twitter at TDAF. And if you want to find more about Leadsift, it's leadsift.com. Check us out. We do free reports. Like, we can tell you who your buyers are right now for free, no strings attached. So reach out. And if you have any questions around, data science, marketing, intent, what is intent, what is not, I'm always game. And as I said, we are launching a podcast. Hopefully that'll be useful. That will provide some more context.
That's super cool. I'm actually going to link it all below, and you guys could tell.
Please
Like, you
do.
could, yeah, I'm sure everybody could sense like how much you know about data. We spent like 10 minutes talking about intent alone here.
I know, I know. I'm sorry. I dragged. I said I shouldn't be talking too much about certain things, and I just went blabbering on. So
No, not at all. I enjoyed it a lot. I'm so interested in that too. Like, I like the
thanks,
creative side,
man.
but I also like the data side too. Tukan, it was a
Yeah,
pleasure. Thank you for
thank
yeah.
you, man. Thanks a lot.